Hi, everybody. My name is Natalie Gee. Thank you so much for being here. I'm a filmmaker and I'm really excited to be doing this Q&A for Nocturnes. I want to just describe myself for our blind and low vision attendees. I'm blonde, white woman. I'm wearing a blue and black shirt. I'm wearing glasses and I have a big bookshelf behind me. And I want to introduce our wonderful directors. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Natalie. It's a pleasure to be on the Q&A with you for Nocturnes and be a part of IDA FallDocs. My name is Anupama. I'm from Delhi, and I just will describe myself briefly. I have curly hair and a South Asian looking face, and I'm wearing a red sweater and sitting against a brick wall.
Hi, Natalie. So lovely to be here. I am Anirban. I'm the director and producer of Nocturnes. I would describe myself. I'm wearing black glasses. Um, I am a bearded South Asian man wearing a blue sweater sitting against a brick wall.
Thank you both. I want to jump right in. It's such a beautiful film, so unique. Can we start with just hearing about how the film came about and why it was important for you to sort of slow down and connect with nature in this really beautiful way?
Yeah. Um, so we live in Delhi,
Mm,
possibly one of the most polluted cities on earth right now.
mm,
And we were just completely tired of being confined to our homes where we would have air conditioning on or the heaters on during winter and then air purifiers. And we were living in this bubble,
mm,
completely segregated from the natural world. And I have two kids who would not be able to go out and play. The pollution was so severe. So we saw that, the world that we were grew up as children, where we could go to our garden, follow a butterfly, or look at a grasshopper, that world had completely disappeared for my kids. And Anu and I, for a long time, was thinking, what is that something that we can do through our medium of film, which would invite people, young and old, children, to connect back to nature. Kind of just have that childlike curiosity of watching as we watch the first ant crawl on the floor. So that was our intent, and that's how Nocturnes came about.
wow. And so, how did you, though, decide it was going to be on these moths? And how did you meet our scientist in the film?
So we had this thought that we wanted to do something that will connect us back to nature, but
Mm,
we didn't know what the vehicle of that was going to be.
mm,
And as sometimes it happens in life, it was almost destiny that we ran into Mansi, the scientist who we see in the film.
mm,
Um, we didn't know her from before. We just ran into her at a restaurant in the Western Himalayas where we were doing some commissioned work, and she happened to be on the same project and doing some other aspect of it, some research aspect. And she was
mm.
complaining that I'm just doing this to earn some money, but my real passion is moths. And I work in this gorgeous forest in the Eastern Himalayas. And then she went on to describe what she does, which was put up this wide screen at dusk
Mm.
and the blue lights on top of it, and then wait. And then these hordes of beautiful, colorful uh, moths would come and settle on this. When we heard her describe this, we were both so intrigued and charmed by both her passion and by this image that she created with her words. And
Wow.
we were like, we want to go and see what she does because we were like, there's
Yeah.
probably a film here. So it was basically that one image of a moth
Mm,
screen, a white screen with blue lights filled with moths of different textures and colors that drew us to this. And we also, of course, because in our minds, we had this idea that we wanted to do something about nature, around nature,
mm,
that was a direct link. So we were like,
mm.
okay, we've got to go and see what she does. And when we went there, we were totally blown. And we were like, okay, we've got to do this.
Absolutely. I think what's so magical about the film is its visual language. And I wanted to ask, you make us so in awe of these creatures, and we see them like we've never seen them before. And can you share how you wanted to approach just the attention to detail that you do with the cinematography, along with the pacing of the shots? Because we really sit with the moths and really let them wash over us. And it's very intentional.
Um, Actually, what happened when we went to the forest
Mm,
in Arunachal Pradesh in West Kaming district, it had a transformative
mm,
experience. It was a transformative experience for us.
mm,
It calmed us down. It kind of let us forget our anxieties and our fears that we were holding inside our body.
mm,
And when we saw the scientists at work at night, and we saw that how attentive they were kind of
right,
slowing down to the rhythm of the place, and they were letting, those moths come and sit on the screen, and the whole symphony of an orchestra unfold in front of them.
right,
And it was without, our subconscious mind automatically calibrated to that rhythm.
wow.
And once that calibration happened, we just told ourselves, let us respond to what is happening to our own body. And we
Mm,
felt that we wanted to make a film that will calm people down, that will lower people's anxiety, because we didn't want to add any more dystopia, any
mm,
more anxiety. And we felt that if this is what is happening to us, what is the rhythm of the shot that will translate what is happening to us to the audience who experiences the film? And one of the guiding force was the attention with which Biki and Mansi were doing the work. So
right.
their rhythm, the rhythm of the plays, dictated the rhythm of the shots.
Wow. That's, yeah, I mean, that makes so much sense saying that now, because you feel it in every aspect of the film, as well as the sound design too, not just only in the flapping of the moth wings and the forest, but even the stillness that's captured as well. Um, what was it like to really have the sound design be such an integral part of this film? Can you talk a little bit about what it was like to craft that?
So when we first went to the forest, we were totally overwhelmed by the plethora of sounds there. And the
Mm,
sounds would keep changing. And during the day, like every sort of half an hour, the sounds of the forest would change. Because there's a whole rhythm around which the different animals, birds, insects operate there. And
mm,
sometimes it's a rustling of the wind, sometimes it's one type of cricket, then the little birds come, then there's a little bit of silence, and then at dusk, it's totally different because then there's a whole bunch of birds which are, squeaking, and then there are night birds. So there was that whole bed of sound that we encountered. And when we did the first round of shooting and we came back, we had this feeling that we got really great sound, but it really didn't do justice to the soundscape that we had experienced. And so our
mm,
whole challenge throughout the shoot was how to constantly refine our way of listening to through our technological devices, through our microphones, so that we will be able to replicate that sound as much as possible. So we had a whole bunch of different microphones to do the surround sound, and also for the very small sounds like the flapping of
mm.
the wings, or when a small insect crawls on that cloth. How do we go from the macro to the micro. And along with the visuals, we wanted the sound to guide us to also perceive what you see differently. So on the
Right.
screen, when we see a particular thing and then our eye goes there, because we are actually putting the sound of that and making your eye travel. And then we start, so in the sound design actually, which took, the sound post took 6 months. So we were doing
Wow.
around 4.5, 5 months in India, and then a 1 month in New York, where Tom Paul did the final mix, and that was an incredible experience of mixing it in an Atmos studio. Uh,
Oh,
and then it was like really fine tuning is how can in every image create a little narrative, a little story, and a little play with the audience, how to guide their eye through the way the sound design is done. So you see a flap there, so you hear the flap, and so you see
yeah.
it. Then you see, hear something there, and then your eye travels. So a little bit of, so we feel that cinema has such a rich potential to have this dialogue, constant dialogue with the audience. And that's what we were seeking to do with both image, sound, and of course the edit.
Yeah, absolutely. It really makes you like, what's happening over here? Like as if you're walking through the forest and hearing sounds all around you from behind, and it's so immersive. Um, I was wondering if the idea for the ending came through the edit, or did you always know that you wanted us to really deeply feel this film before we sort of intellectually understand what's at stake?
So, one key idea that Anu and I worked with
Mm,
was that we did not want the film to be didactic.
mm, mm,
And we did not want to give you just information for information's sake. We wanted every shot, every cut to have a sense of evocation.
mm.
So we wanted you to feel from inside the vibration of the forest, the beauty of the forest, to really internalize words like biodiversity. Because what does biodiversity mean? Biodiversity, to kind of how do you illustrate, make you feel that biodiversity?
Mm,
So we had this faith that if we follow the work of the scientist, there will be something after 2, 3 years that will give us some indication. So we did not know what that indication was going to be, but we
mm,
trusted the process that there will be something that will come out. But even if that didn't come out, we knew that we had a mesmerizing film in terms of immersion. So
yes.
once Mansi had some finding, and which was very powerful, it just
Mm,
made itself in the edit at that point. But it was not
mm,
planned in that way. It just happened so
mm.
that we found that while we were shooting, and then it seems like that is the ending that we should have. And
Yeah,
also, we felt that we are so numb with words like climate change, global warming,
right.
and there is such a big force in the world, and now more so than ever,
Mm,
who wants to just say that climate change doesn't exist, let us walk out of
mm,
the Paris Accord. So the point is that we need to have more people care for this
mm,
amazing forest, care for this biodiversity, so that there is an internal shift that happens within us, so that we feel ourselves as a part of the natural world and not outside of it.
mm. Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to ask what it was like to shoot because it seems like it would take a lot of stamina. You have difficult conditions, difficult weather, and I was just wondering what was the time scale of the shoot like, and what was the most challenging parts of shooting in this remote area?
So overall, the film took around 5 years to make, uh, but that is including the post and till the finish
Right.
line. But we shot for around 3 years from the beginning, and it was during,
Wow.
some of it was during COVID, so we missed a bit of time there. And also, it's a very seasonal activity, what they do.
Ah,
in
I
like
see.
in 4, 5 of the winter months, it's not worth it for them to put up the moth screen because very few moths come. So
I
their
see.
work is restricted to a few months of the year. And then
Mm,
in some of the months, like in the peak rainy season there, we
mm,
cannot access the forest at all. The crew cannot access it because it's
okay.
like such heavy downpour that there are no roads, there are no paths, and we cannot take out the
Wow.
equipment in that kind of rain.
Yeah.
So our shooting period was restricted, and there were, of course, shooting in a place like this has a whole bunch of physical challenges
Mm.
for especially city dwellers like us who are not so used to being in the wild. Um,
Mm.
and so there were a lot of insect bites and leeches and rain anytime and every time, and extreme cold and so on. But we also were quite humbled because we knew that Mansi and her team of research assistants who were from the community who live near the forest, they have
Mm.
won this for much before we came along, and they continue to work even today. So we were like, of course it's tough for us, but our hardship is way smaller than what the scientists go through. Uh,
Yeah.
and we also had this feeling that every time we were like, oh my God, why are we doing this? And it's so painful and it's so like physically draining. And
Mm.
then when actually we had a good moth night, along with the scientists, we also rejoiced because we were like, oh my God, the moths are here. And then we sort of relaxed and we were like, oh, this is so beautiful. And we
Yes.
forgot our tiredness. And then we used to just spend the whole night shooting even after they were done because the moths would
No.
keep sitting
Wow.
there. So we could go one by
Oh.
one and film them. And that was extraordinary. They just sit there and
Yes.
posing. So it was really, and that was that the beauty of that and the wonder with which we received it every time did not change over that 3.5 years that we shot. It just remained
Wow.
exactly the same.
Wow. There was a comment that Nancy and Vicky were talking about, and I wanted to ask. It was something about old growth on trees, and I wondered what was the meaning of that in regards to the moths or attracting the moths. Was that something that they were always looking out for? Do you know?
Actually, that is Mansi and her mentor Ramana were
Ah,
discussing where to put the moth screen.
I
And I,
see.
I think the old growth, by that they mean that it's the native trees and not things that have
Ah,
replanted. So I think
I
that may be
see.
better for the local flora and fauna to flourish when it hasn't
Ah,
been disturbed.
And that means that the forest has not gone through deforestation. So they have
all
the
right.
logs have not been cut there, or people haven't destroyed the native forest. So that means the host plants of the moths will be still intact in that small area.
Right, right. Wow. It's incredible to learn that certain moths, like they only live a few days, but ha have been around for millions of years. And I was just curious, what did they teach you about survival or adapting or just our relationship to nature?
This is a very deep question that we
Mm,
keep thinking about even
mm,
today. That I think there has to be a shift in thinking of humans, of how we live in this world.
mm,
This endless consumption that we have is actually creating everything off balance. Now, when you look at a moth's
mm,
life, the moths are one of the most crucial creatures in the world because it actually it eats a lot of plant tissues and
mm,
converts it into animal tissue in the form of caterpillars and moths,
Mm,
on which
mm.
the birds and reptiles and many other animals feed. So,
Right.
so they form such a crucial link. But
Yes.
look at the tenacity of that organism. It has lived through so many mass extinction, and they
Mm,
keep performing that role. But here we are humans who have come much later,
Mm,
but we are actually, through our extractions of mineral resources, through our
mhm,
consumption, much
mm,
more than what we need, we have put so many things off balance. So I think the whole idea of why we want people to come to the cinema to watch Nocturnes is to, for a few seconds, just to look at this microcosm, in a way, if you please, of these small insects and
mhm.
how much of a role they play in our giant world, but so
Yeah,
quietly.
so quietly.
And
Yeah.
in a way, we wanted to question this human-centric worldview that many of us have. And through our
Mm,
cinematic language, we want to say, how can we create a world within the film in which that balance is restored? So in the
mm,
film, if you see, many times the human beings are very small and far away, and they look tiny in the frame, or the
yeah.
car that they go in looks really tiny, and the moths look really big, and they take, in terms of time, a large portion of the film is spent in observing the moths. And the human beings are present in terms of voices, or maybe not present at all. So
Mhm.
we wanted to find a cinematic way of talking about our philosophy,
Yeah.
which was that how do we restore this balance? How can we not be obsessed with ourselves? How can we open our eyes and ears and look at the world and the beauty around us?
Absolutely. I love that. I really do because you make us slow down, you make us appreciate these really incredible creatures. And yeah, I think in the film somewhere it's mentioned that, in Silence of the Lambs, there's like a death hawk moth, and you kind of feel like they get a bit of a bad reputation. But through this film, we sit with them and we really are in awe of them and the filmmaking and the craft of the film. And it's beautiful. So thank you so much for being here today. Is there anything you'd want to end on?
We just feel that this is a letter from us
Mm,
to to families, and we want people to come into the cinemas with younger
mm,
people, especially children, and we want the children to feel that there is a lot that is there in the nature still to be
yeah.
preserved. Still there is hope. We don't want to paint a gloomy picture for future.
Mm, absolutely. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this Q&A. It's been wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
having us.
Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you.
Thank you.